All right, welcome. Today we've got something really cool for you. We're going to watch cutting-edge artificial intelligence take on Abraham Lincoln. Seriously, we're going to explore this fascinating experiment that built an AI to act as a kind of historical judge.
And that brings us to the big question, right? Can an AI really solve a historical mystery? Now look, we're not talking about finding lost treasure or anything like that. This is way more complex. We're talking about understanding that gap. You know, the one between what someone said happened and our history actually remembers it.
So, here's the heart of the problem. History is never just one story. It's not that simple. On one hand, you have Lincoln's own words, his actual letters, his speeches, factual, direct stuff. On the other hand, you've got historians writing years, sometimes decades later, adding all these layers of meaning and symbolism. This gap even has a name. It's called historiographical divergence. And that is the mystery we're asking our AI to investigate.
Okay, so first things first, we have to properly define this mystery. We're basically setting up a case file. The AI's job is to compare Abraham Lincoln's own words side by side with the writings of biographers and historians who studied him. The whole point is to see if an AI can systematically find the differences and, more importantly, classify what kind of differences they are.
Now, every good investigation needs evidence, right? But for our AI detective, that evidence isn't fingerprints or old witness interviews. It's data. Piles and piles of raw, messy historical text.
So the evidence basically comes from two types of witnesses. First, you've got the primary sources. This is like first-person testimony straight from Lincoln himself. His letters, his speeches, his notes, all sourced from the Library of Congress. Then you've got the secondary sources. This is what everybody else wrote about him. Biographies, deep-dive historical analyses from places like Project Gutenberg. Our AI needs to get its head around both to see the full picture.
But let me tell you, this was not some clean, neat spreadsheet. The team had to deal with the messy reality of historical documents. We're talking corrupted text from old scans with all kinds of errors, wildly inconsistent formatting, missing dates, missing locations, not to mention tons of junk text like page numbers and headers that had to be stripped out. It took some serious engineering work just to get this data into a usable state for the AI.
So, the evidence has been gathered. It's been cleaned up. Now, it's time to introduce the star of our show, the detective in this whole case, the AI judge.
So, what in the world is an LLM judge? Well, think of it as a specialized AI that acts like an impartial referee. You give it two different stories about the same event, in our case, Lincoln's version and a historian's version. The AI's only job is to read them both, compare them, and then act as a neutral judge, scoring how well they line up and explaining exactly where they disagree.
Here's a quick look at how it actually works. First, the AI takes in the two sets of claims. Then it compares them point by point. After that, it spits out a simple consistency score from 0 to 100. And finally, and this is the most crucial part, it classifies any disagreements it finds. Is it a factual error? Is it just a difference in interpretation? Or did one source simply leave something out that the other included?
With the judge all set up and ready to go, the investigation could finally begin. The AI was tasked with looking at some of the most pivotal moments in Abraham Lincoln's entire presidency.
And these are the 5 case files the AI had to analyze. We've got the tension of the 1860 election night, the critical decision over Fort Sumter, his most famous speeches at Gettysburg in the second inaugural, and of course, the tragic events at Ford's Theater. Each one of these presents a completely unique set of historical accounts to compare. And here's a concrete example of what one of the judge's verdicts looked like. For the Gettysburg Address, it gave a super high consistency score, 90 out of 100. And its reasoning? It found that Lincoln's own text and the historian's analyses really lined up on the big themes, sacrifice and the nation's purpose. This is exactly the kind of clear, summarized output the whole system was designed for.
So, the AI has given us its findings. But this brings up a huge question, probably the most important one. Can we actually trust its judgment? Before we accept any of its conclusions, we kind of have to put the judge itself on trial.
And that leads us to this really critical phase, validation. I mean, how do you basically give a lie detector test to an AI to make sure it's reliable, that it's consistent, and that it's not just making things up? Well, you do it with some really rigorous statistical testing.
The researchers ran 3 crucial tests. The first is called prompt robustness, which basically asks, if you phrase the question in a slightly different way, does the AI's answer totally change? Second, self-consistency.
If you ask it the exact same question multiple times, do you get the same answer back? And third, inter-rater agreement. Do different AIs, or even different prompting strategies on the same AI, come to the same conclusions?
So let's look at the results. For that first test, prompt robustness, the scores for each event barely budged. It didn't matter if they used a simple prompt, a really complex chain of thought prompt, or one with a bunch of examples. This is a great sign. It means the AI isn't easily tricked by the phrasing of the question. It's focused on the actual data.
Next up, self-consistency. They ran the same analysis 5 different times. And just look at how close those bars are. The minimum score, the average score, and the max score are all packed right together. This proves the judge isn't noisy or random. It's consistent and reliable in its judgments.
And here's the final nail in the coffin, a statistic called Cohen's kappa, which is a common way to measure agreement between different judges, scored over 0.8. For context, anything above 0.8 is considered near-perfect agreement. So all the tests point to the same conclusion. This AI judge is trustworthy.
Okay, so we've established our AI judge is reliable. We can trust its process. But what did it actually find? What is the final verdict on the relationship between Lincoln's own words and the history written about him?
Well, this is where you see both the promise and the peril of using AI. On the one hand, the AI can hallucinate. For instance, it once claimed newspapers immediately called the Gettysburg Address a masterpiece, a detail that just wasn't in the texts it was given. That's noise. But on the other hand, it found a genuine insight. It correctly noted that historians consistently add this layer of mythic, symbolic meaning to the speech that Lincoln's own words in the moment just don't have. That's the signal.
And this quote really gets to the heart of the matter. The power here isn't in treating any single AI answer as the truth. Instead, the confidence comes from looking at the behavior of the whole system, the ensemble, and backing it up with statistical proof. That's how we can be sure it's capturing real historical patterns, and not just random AI quirks.
So, here's the final takeaway. An AI judge like this is an incredibly powerful new tool for analyzing history. But, and this is a big but, it's not perfect. Its real value isn't in giving a single magical answer. Its true value comes when its insights are combined with that rigorous validation, allowing us to confidently separate the genuine historical signal from the machine's noise.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question. We've just seen an AI learn how to analyze the incredibly complex nuances of historical texts with real statistical reliability. So, if AI can learn to judge history, what do you think it's going to be asked to judge next? Thanks for joining us.